Hey, welcome into the Shopfix channel, a community joined together for the love of woodworking. In today's episode, I want to show you how to build this awesome covered sandbox. Alright, let's get started here. So this particular sandbox that I built is 6 foot by 6 foot, made out of pressure treated 2x10s. And it made for a great build and a simple build. All I really had to do was make sure the sandbox was level to the ground, and after I got it leveled, all I had to use was the 2x10s, and I just secured everything with deck screws. Super easy. And then I used the scrap to build those triangle pieces, and it provides kind of extra support to keep everything square, as well as, a couple seats for the kids when they're playing in the sandbox. So the focus of this video is going to be on the covered roof, because that was definitely more intricate to build. The sandbox is very simple. So the first thing you want to do when you're building the covered roof is use 2x4s, and you're just going to make a square right on the top of your sandbox. So if you build like a 4 foot by 4 foot sandbox, you're just going to simply build a 4 foot by 4 foot square. Now it's important to note here that I am using pressure treated lumber for every piece. So the sandbox is made out of pressure treated 2x10s, and the covered roof is going to be made out of 2x4s that are also pressure treated. So once you have all these 2x4s on the top of the sandbox lined up and squared up, you'll simply take 2 deck screws to securely mount each side of the frame together. So I've had this sandbox with the cover operational for about 2 months, and I can tell you that it adds such great value to a backyard playground, and the kids absolutely love it. Next, after you get the frame all securely mounted, basically you're just gonna have to figure out what angle your roof is gonna be. And I found that 22.5 degrees works perfect for this type of situation. So you're just gonna wanna cut your first angle at 22.5, and then to measure how long both your boards are gonna need to be to match up in the middle, I created just a straight edge so that I can easily mark where the middle is, and then I'm gonna go back to the miter saw and cut that out at 22.5, and then basically just match that piece for the next piece, and I know that's gonna be a perfect fit for my roof angle. So a quick tip at this point in the project would be that don't try to cut the measurement as far as length perfectly, because it's easier to take off a little bit to get that roof pitch to match up perfectly. Next, you want to mark the middle of the sandbox for the middle roof support pieces. Now, for the right side support pieces, it'll simply butt up against the edge of the frame, so there's no measuring involved. Now, after you get those secured and clamped down, you'll want to drill 2 pilot holes for 2 deck screws to securely mount the roof pieces to the edge of the frame. And then at the top, to secure the 2 roof pieces together, you'll simply use nails. After you have all of the angled roof pieces screwed and nailed in, you're going to want to measure the 2 gaps at the top, and we're going to use 2x4s to fill those gaps, and we're going to just simply nail them in. I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of Shopfix, and I hope you found this valuable when building a covered sandbox such as this one. You can help promote my videos like this one by smashing that like button and joining the Shopfix community. Thanks. So as we continue here, you'll notice that I'm using a bar clamp to secure that board in place while I'll nail it down. The majority of the nails that I used on this project were around 3 inches. Now that we have the structure of this roof fully complete, all we have to simply do is attach our tarp. The tarp that I've used is a waterproof tarp that's 8 foot by 10 foot, and it worked absolutely perfectly for the 6 foot by 6 foot sandbox. You'll want to use a smaller tarp for a smaller sandbox. So the simplest way that I found to secure the tarp onto the frame was by using trim pieces on the outside of the roof pieces. And I did this so that there wouldn't be just one point of contact. Like if I just simply screwed the tarp down to the wood, then you're liable to have that tarp rip or tear at those places. So I wanted to make sure that it had more than one point of contact. So these trim pieces are 1.5 inches in width, and they basically match up with the width of the roof pieces. As far as length of these trim pieces, the top 2 that span in between the roof pieces has to be exact. However, all the other trim pieces, I didn't make exactly the length of the roof pieces, and it was easier to assemble. The one thing I did add was a nice little angle at the top so they do meet at a peak, so that's just a 22.5 angle cut on both sides of the trim pieces again. So a good tip to note here is that you'll want to pull that tarp tight. You don't want to stretch it too tight, but just tight enough to have a nice clean look on top after you put all your trim pieces down. You'll definitely want to drill a pilot hole for each of the 3 screws on every trim piece. It does go without saying, however, I will mention that you'll definitely want to buy a heavy duty tarp, probably the heaviest duty tarp that you can find, so that this roof lasts as long as possible. So there's a lot of hardware and different ways that you can have this roof be removed easily. I happen to use 10-inch T-hinges on the side that was going to be adjacent to the fence so that it wouldn't take up any more room in the backyard. And I found this to be adequate and very, very easy to operate, lifting it up and putting it back down, and it's not heavy at all, so it's very easy to maneuver. Okay, maybe a little heavy, but definitely not bad at all.